Hi, my name is Chris Group and I'm with Aesthetic Advisor, and we are about to get into one of our videos in our Skinteresting educational series. So why are we doing videos? In a nutshell, to give you more education, to help you out in not only understanding skin, but possibly treatments that we're doing with lasers, IPL devices, microneedling, all kinds of different subjects that you will have a need for education on. Now, at Aesthetic Advisor, one of the things that we did with all of our trainings is we had somebody custom make our slides for us. Why? Because a lot of the slides that you might have seen out on the internet or from other training companies, you couldn't read them, you couldn't see them, you couldn't understand them. So in order to make it easier to understand, we found somebody to create our slides for us and customize them for what we wanted. And what we're going to go over today is an absorption coefficient. What is an absorption coefficient? And this was truly one of the hardest slides to try to find a good version of. What an absorption coefficient is basically taking a wavelength of light and showing what it absorbs into in the skin and what chromophores it's looking for. What are chromophores? Well, chromophores are colors in the skin that light-based therapies may be looking for, whether it is water or melanin or ink or blood. It's what a laser is looking for in the skin. When we understand our absorption coefficients, we can understand what that wavelength of light can really do. Sometimes I've heard people say that a certain wavelength of light can do something, and it really can't. One of my favorites was there was a laser rep in Michigan who said if you ran their 1064 Nd:YAG over the breasts, you could lift the tissue an inch. If that was true, you would not be able to get into my space because everybody would want their breasts perkier. If you want that to happen, a good surgeon, a good bra, combination of the two is the best. It's not going to be with the 1064 Nd:YAG, okay? Sorry. So let's look at the absorption coefficient. And we're going to talk about some different lasers that you may have seen or heard about, or maybe you're using them in your own practice. So we've got, and by the way, the red little veins are red veins. The blue are blue veins, more of a deeper vein, a reticular vein. And those spiky things going up, that's a hair follicle. Okay, so if you look at the bottom, you've got your dermal papilla and the hair coming out of the top of the epidermis. So you've got your epidermis is the lighter layer, and then the kind of tan or skin color layer is your dermis, and then the yellow layer underneath it is your subcutaneous. So let's look at the different lasers that we have. We've got our erbium YAG, our glass fiber erbium, our pulse dye laser, a ruby laser, alexandrite, a diode, and an Nd:YAG. Now, these wavelengths of light are attracted to different things in the body. And when we understand what the attraction is, we'll know what we can actually do with it. So let's start with the erbium YAG, which is 2940 nanometers. It has got a very, very high absorption into water. So when we look at the little purple mark on it, it's showing where the absorption goes into, which is in the epidermis. Okay, why is that? Well, because it's attracted to water. If it's attracted to water, as soon as it hits the skin, it's going to start absorbing into that water. So an erbium laser is what we use for ablative procedures. We're getting rid of the epidermis, or you're getting rid of the dermis, or let's see, it's used for facial rejuvenation. Ablative lasers have been used for removing moles, removing warts, things like that. Right next to it, we have the 1540 nanometer erbium glass. Well, if you look at that, it goes down into the dermis. Its attraction is still water, but not to the point of ablation, because it's not so absorbed into water that that's the only thing that it's going to see, okay? Moving next to that is a pulse dye laser. It can range from 585 nanometers up to 595 nanometers. When we look at what it sees, you can see it sees more superficial red veins. So what would this be good for? Well, if you were doing a lot of rosacea, if you were working on port wine stains, anything that's vascular but that is more superficial. It wouldn't be appropriate for leg veins because your leg veins are going to be farther down in the reticular dermis. So you've got to be very superficial. When we look at a ruby, the ruby laser has got a very high propensity in absorbing into melanin. So when lasers were first created, they tried to use a ruby laser for hair reduction. Don't do this, okay? It burned everybody over like a skin type 2, which is too much absorption into melanin. The ruby laser now in a Q-switch form is really used for tattoo removal for green ink. When we look next door to that, we've got our alexandrite. Now an alexandrite laser is a great laser for hair reduction on lighter skin types. So if you look at what it absorbs into, it's right around where that melanin is, the hair bulb. So where all the melanin concentrate is in that hair follicle. So it is a fantastic wavelength for hair reduction, but because it sees melanin quite a bit, it's not great for darker skin types. But for skin types 1, 2, and 3, it's a wonderful wavelength for hair reduction. When we move right next to that, we have our 810 diode. Again, another great great laser for hair reduction because it's right in where the dermal bulb is. I'm sorry, not dermal bulb, the hair bulb and bulge to kill those stem cells that will produce hair reduction. And by the way, we do have a video on melanin with hair reduction, so take a look at our series to see that one. So then we have the Nd:YAG. What does the Nd:YAG see? Well, it's attracted to melanin, but not highly attracted to melanin, and it's also attracted to blood. So what can you use it for? Well, you can use it for a hair reduction on all skin types 1 through 6, but I will tell you on the 1s and 2s and 3s, it's pretty painful because since it isn't attracted to melanin very much, it means you have to turn the fluence up on your handpiece or on your laser to get the same absorption you would as, let's say, an alexandrite or a diode. When you increase the fluence, you also increase the pain, so it hurts a lot. So the first laser I ever used was a 1064 Nd:YAG, and most of my patients look like me. It was incredibly painful. Now we really understand this absorption. We can maybe have a different type of laser if our demographics are all 1s, 2s, and 3s, or 1, 2, 3, and 4. What it's great for, though, is hair reduction on a darker skin type because it isn't attracted to melanin so much, which makes it very safe for darker skin types. So if your practice is all 4, 5s, and 6, and mostly 5s and 6, you want to go with an Nd:YAG for hair reduction. It also sees leg veins, so reticular leg veins. So if you are going to do leg veins as part of your treatments, 1064 Nd:YAG is the only laser you want to use for leg veins. We don't use them on facial veins anymore because the risk of adverse reaction is pretty high, but it's great for leg veins. So this is Esthetic Advisor's absorption coefficient. I hope that you understand a little bit more about what lasers see in the skin, and thank you so much for visiting. My name is Chris Group. I'm with Esthetic Advisor, and this is part of our Skinteresting educational series.